Okay. How's this? Is this better? I think I got the mic to work this time. Let's see. Let's see if we can do something. Share this. Share real quick. Take a second, because why not? Because when one thing doesn't work, maybe another thing will. And I think this time the microphone works, which is phenomenal. So now we just need to get everything else all in the same kind of vein. Let's see if this works. So you can hear me now. I see that the mic is working on the bottom end. Hopefully you can hear me, right? Hopefully this is going to work. We'll see if it actually works. We'll find out. We'll find out. You know? Oh, fuck. This has been quite a day, hasn't it? So much shit's happening. I mean, what the hell's going on here, folks? What's with all these riots? I mean, it started off with protests, and now it's riots and looting and violence and people getting beaten in the streets and everyone getting harassed. Civilians, cops, military. What the hell, folks? Where are we at here? This is craziness. It really is. And I honestly don't know how to feel, you know? So I hope those of you who are watching are okay. I hope everyone is okay. Everyone's safe. Seems like in all these major cities, all these riots are happening. The best thing we can do is stay inside and stay safe. I mean, what a scary time with all these riots, with all this pain. I don't even know how to feel at this point. You know? So, but I'm not sure how we cope with this. I'm not sure how we can cope with this. I don't think we can. I think we have to do crisis management right now. I think the best choice is going to be crisis management. And, dude, what are we doing here? You know? Why is it just police? Why are police acting alone? What are communities doing? You know? It seems like this is the perfect time for different community organizations to come together and try and create spaces where people can be de-escalated, right? Like, what if churches got together here in LA and open up their doors so that people who are struggling, who are angry, could come talk, could come get some sense of relief, some sense of comfort. Everyone seems to be in a lot of pain because of, you know, Floyd's death, and that's perfectly reasonable. Then the question is, since we're all aligned that it's horrible what happened to this guy, and even the president is like, we're going to do a civil rights investigation, what are we going to do as a community to help everyone heal? Because it can't just be some grand gesture like a civil rights investigation. It can't just be cops in riot gear trying to stop people from doing violent things. There's got to be more. This can't just be, oh, there were riots for a week or two or whatever, and then it's over. Like, that can't be the story. This can't be the end of the story. And I'm afraid, my fear, is that this is just going to be the end of the story, where it's like, there were riots, there was looting, bad things were happening, bad people were doing bad things, and I don't even know what to think here at this point. You know? It's just, what the hell do we do? What the hell is going on here? This cannot be the end of the story. So Bobby just said hi. Hey, Bobby. Sorry, I haven't been very communicative. Thanks for showing up. I'm talking about all the riots and stuff, and I'm talking about how the community needs to respond. I think that whatever the government's doing, whatever the police, whatever the National Guard's doing is not enough. I think we're in a very stuck and sick place, and I'm afraid of martial law and things like that personally, because I know it's easy for things to get out of hand, and I think that all these things need to be addressed very thoughtfully. And what I'm afraid is that not very thoughtful actions are about to be taken. So we need to kind of have a very clear and calm conversation about what needs to happen. And just police and riot gear and National Guard, I don't think is going to be the solution at all. I think, trying to stop violence is one thing. Trying to help people heal is a totally separate issue. And I'm not foreseeing that happening. I'm foreseeing business as usual, a bunch of stupid political speeches from a bunch of fucking morons who don't know the first thing about mental health, who are not trying to actually help people heal. Speeches are only great if they're backed up by action. And what needs to happen, in my opinion, is people need to get together and try and work on healing. Then that's not a quick thing. You can't just hold a seminar. You can't hold a rally. You can't hold a moment of silence or a day of silence. We have to get together, and we have to get dirty together. We have to sit down and talk about the fact that we're pissed. We have to sit down and talk about the fact that we don't trust each other. And we're not doing that. And it really frustrates me that good people are getting hurt. Good people are becoming intoxicated with power, with violence. It sucks that so many regular people are getting caught up in such nonsense that we're destroying ourselves. This shit shouldn't have to happen. But we don't address the core issues. This is just like any other mental health thing, where as an individual, you might be able to bottle up your anger, your rage, your resentment, your fear, your pain for months, maybe even years, and never anything horrific will happen. But maybe slowly and subtly, you kind of let some of it out. Maybe it's with fights with your romantic partner, or your family, or friends. Maybe it's political bullshit. Maybe it's a number of things that you do to let out your sense of being wronged, your resentment, your hurt, your fear, your pain. Maybe you come from a marginalized group and your whole identity has been around people who are, objectified, enslaved, hurt, demeaned, diminished. And you've got pain that you've never dealt with, that your community struggles to deal with. What do we do? Sit there and be in pain. Stuff it. Get drunk. Get high. Watch a bunch of bullshit TV. Work menial jobs that don't actually enrich us emotionally, physically, community-wise. People are stuck in stupid patterns, stuck in rigidity. And this is what happens when societies and cultures become too rigid. They snap. That's what's happened. We have too much unaddressed pain, too much unaddressed fear, and we live in this weird delusion that we can be sophisticated with each other. Sorry. It's not going to work. It can't work. I see there's some more comments, so I'm going to say some stuff. So G-Man G says, financial insolvency combined with a tainted social contract. Yeah, that's for sure. That's totally the case. And then Bobby Snickers says, yeah, you're right. They have intentionally separated people. We've intentionally separated ourselves, unfortunately. People have been under house arrest and all the shit's been boiling up, and maybe some of it is intentional. Maybe Antifa is doing bullshit and causing riots to happen, and that's bullshit too. Fuck them for making us worse, if that's the truth. If that's true, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if it's true, that's such bullshit. Making things worse doesn't make it better. This is not how catharsis works. Catharsis rarely even works. That's the joke of it. That Freudian shit has been debunked. Just because you punch a punching bag for half an hour doesn't mean the internal pain's gone. The punching bag is just a temporary coping skill. That's the whole point of the punching bag. It's not to actually solve the deeper pain. We don't solve this problem by just being animals to each other. We don't solve this problem by brutalizing people with the police. We don't solve this problem by brutalizing each other, by being tribal, by being racist, by being simplistic in our thinking. We have to get multidimensional. We have to actually address the deeper parts of our shit that's just been sitting there, and people aren't doing it. And I don't even know how to, like, I don't know. I don't even know how to progress forward at this point, because it just seems like we're stuck in the same old, same old shit. And it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. It really doesn't. It just doesn't seem to be doing anything. And it's really disappointing. It's really, really disappointing. So what else do you think? What do you think we should do here? What do you think? What should we do? What can we do? What are our real options? What's really in our grasp? I mean, what is it that's actually possible? I don't know. Given my background and what I've been taught, the first thing that I think is, how do we relieve pain? And how do we de-escalate? How do we do crisis management? Right? Who's willing to do that? I don't know. Seems like most people have kind of shut up and just said, I'm going to hide my house and I don't know if I can be of any support. It's like, okay. I don't know. I just don't know. And Bobby says they stomped the shop owner to death. I don't think he actually died. I think he's just in critical care right now. But yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. All this stuff. Yeah, I definitely need a haircut. G-Man says, this is a tough one. Yeah, it's a very tough one. I don't know what to fucking do, And, share this link. Let's get more people talking. I can stay on as long as you all want. Like, I want to talk this out. My first instinct is we have to put the bullshit aside. We have to put the politics aside. We have to put all this tribal bullshit aside. We have to get back to being human and dealing with the primitive, this is what human is. And I don't know any other better way to do that than to actually sit down with people when they're in a calmer state of mind and let them be in pain and be seen and be heard and help make them whole. I don't know how else to work other than that. And there's got to be a way to do this. Bobby says, we have to continue with conscious momentum. Oh, of course. Yeah. Bobby says, people have been silenced and divided, and this is why I've been so against the masks. It runs deep. There are so many factors to this. Yeah. I mean, anytime we feel divided and separate from, we're in pain. We're not designed to be separated from and enjoy it. We're designed to be separated from and either be afraid of it or in pain because of it. And we have to deal with that. This is my main critique of like the IDW folks. They talk up here about all this bullshit, these fancy, complicated ideas and statistics and shit like that. And they don't get ear in the mud with anyone talking about pain and fear and confusion, not knowing who you are, how you fit in, how you integrate different parts of your identity. They don't deal with that, right? It's so primitive and we don't deal with it. We have to deal with it. Why aren't people dealing with this shit? It seems like such, and I get it. Like, imagine going right now to a community where this violence has been happening, Minnesota or in LA or Chicago or Pennsylvania, New York, wherever. Imagine being the person to volunteer and go sit in a church and just talk with people face to face, person to person. None of the professional bullshit, none of the identity bullshit. Tell me what your pain is. Let me be here for you. That's not easy to do. That's not comfortable. It's scary. That's the shit that has to happen. And why it's not happening, I don't know. It needs to happen. Like here in LA, if some, like, I'm working with one nonprofit right now and we're trying to organize something where we can do this, but we need more people do it. Right. So G-Man says it's a tough one, fear of the unknown. And Bobby says community building is the solution. Yes, we need to build community right now. We can't wait till the violence ends. We can't wait for 15 days so we can sit there and reflect. You know, the people who are comfortable can't just sit there and reflect. That's bullshit. We have to build community right now in the midst of the crisis. Groups need to get together. People need to get together and be able to hold space for the people who are in pain and afraid. I'm not saying that the violent behavior is okay and that those people get a pass. I'm just saying that at some point, this pain has to be dealt with. Because if you don't deal with it, it's going to keep happening every time there's an opportune moment. There's a crisis, right? And it's just not being addressed. You know, it just is not, our primitive side's not being addressed. And it has to be addressed for this to work. Bobby says, we've been meeting every Friday in person. So building lots, good, build connection, right? No, we need civil disobedience, right? What Bobby's talking about. We need civil disobedience. We don't need uncivil disobedience. If it were, you know, possible, you know, well, I think, who is it? I just retweeted. What's his name? He's a congressperson. What's his fucking name? Fuck, I don't know what the what's the congressperson's name? Let me see if I can find the tweet here real quick. I think I might have it right here. No, maybe not. No, maybe. No. Maybe here's the tweet. John Lewis, Representative John Lewis said, I know your pain, your rage, your sense of despair and hopelessness. Justice has indeed been denied for far too long. Rioting, looting, and burning is not the way. Organize, demonstrate, sit in, stand up, vote, be constructive, not destructive. Representative John Lewis. Seems like a pretty reasonable statement to me. Seems like that's the solution. And we have to really kind of, I think we have to sit in with each other and address each other, to be fair. I just can't imagine it's actually working. It's just so disparaging. It's just I mean, disparaging is not the right word, but I'm so frustrated that I don't even know anymore. Like, we need to do something more to be in touch with each other. And it's obviously a very scary time, but this can't work. The circumstance is not tenable. It just is not going to hold. It's just not going to hold at all. So what do we do other than get together and try and be human with each other and try and see and understand people's pain and fear? I don't know. Bobby says racial pandering is also not helping. We need to recognize our shared humanity. Of course we do. But they have been generating lack of humanity. Well, we dehumanize and demean each other when we play into tribalistic games. And that's the issue, is that all this is unfortunately part of this tribalistic bullshit, you know? I would appreciate the hug. Bobby says, I want to give you a hug. I'd appreciate that. Like, oh, they being the media? Yeah, who was it? Someone put out a really killer fucking media. Yeah. I've been saying for a long time on my YouTube channel that I cannot stand the media and I wish that they would all end. And it seems like CNN's on its way out, thank God. But someone put out a great video. Who was it? Was it Killer Mike? I think it was Killer Mike who put out a phenomenal video talking about this is the shit this is the bed you made, mainstream media, CNN, bullshitters. Like, here, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, you got to look this up. Killer Mike put out an amazing statement on the protests in Atlanta and crushed it. Crushed it. Same thing with the mayor of Atlanta, the police chief of Atlanta, all doing their best, you know. But yeah, the media is just gross. Just absolutely gross. They're not helping anybody, right? We can help each other, though. That's the fucking joke of all this, is that if the mainstream media didn't have their heads up their asses trying to make ridiculous ratings and money, and were interested in actually helping the community, they could have actually done something to bring people together and promote solidarity. Instead, it's fear-bait headline, anger, rage, despair, badmouth each other, sow division, keep sowing division, sow more division, badmouth each other, name call, sow conspiracy, just assholes. All of them assholes as a group, categorically, professionally. Most of them not doing a very good job of helping us work together. How many news headlines do you see that say, let's work together? Let's find common ground. Let's work towards reasonable solutions. No, it's this bad thing, that bad thing, scary thing over here. Oh my God, Donald Trump, whatever. Bullshit. Just bullshit. These people are setting us back, and they've been setting us back for at least a decade. And it's just so gross. It's just absolutely so gross. Now, is it their fault that the protests are happening? No. This bullshit's been brewing for a long time. But still, how are we going to address people's pain and fear if everything you see on TV is more pain, more fear, and being framed in such a way that it should continue? Assholes. Bobby says they're lying assholes. Yes, of course they are. G-Man G says, media companies love bad news. Quality of content is hard to come by. And Bobby says, it makes you miss the good old days of Alchemy of the Mind podcast. Yeah, we need to get that back going. Yeah, we definitely need to get that going. Yeah, fuck. This is one of those moments where it's like, I wish everybody could just like get a really killer in like the great good sense, great dose of like psilocybin and be able to release some of their pain. You know, I don't know if it would work. I'm not sitting here saying drugs are the answer. I'm an addiction specialist, but it just seems like in terms of a massive release of energy, who knows how it would work? Poppy says MDMA for all and psilocybin. If only. I mean, look, there's just so much pain and there needs to be a safe way to release it. Some kind of safe way to release it, and there's just not right now. Who is really working to help people release their pain? It's not the cops. It's not the news. It's not the government. Where are the mental health organizations? You know? Let's take a look on Twitter and see what the supposed mental health organizations are saying. Let's just check and see if, like, the National Institute of Mental Health, right? NIMH. Mentalhealth.gov. What are they saying? Let's see how well they're responding. 1 day ago, nothing about it. 1 day ago, nothing about it. 3 days ago, nothing about it. National Institute of Mental Health, only putting out research initiatives, doesn't give a shit about what's going on here. The riots. And how about SAMHSA? SAMHSA is supposed to be the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. What's SAMHSA saying? Let's see. Pinned tweet is all about mental illness, stay-at-home orders, domestic violence for COVID-19. Nothing about the protest. Nothing about support, crisis management. So SAMHSA, National Institute of Mental Health, 0 fucks given. Sweet, guys. Way to be the arbiters of mental health. Gotta love the government, right? Gotta love the government. Gotta love it. So, essentially, the people that are supposed to be taking a look, and let's see what Nami's saying. Maybe Nami's saying. Nami, communicate. What are they saying about this? We're all in this together. COVID-19. Nami walks 16 hours ago. New Blue Jeans mile world record. Pandemic. 9 hours. Walk your way. Fundraising. So, Nami, National Institute of Mental Health, SAMHSA, as of today, the 30th. Riots have been happening for 3 days. NAMI, NIMH, and SAMHSA, supposedly the arbiters of mental health in the United States, not saying shit about how to help people heal or manage crisis, manage aggressive behavior. Nothing. Not a thing. What the hell? Why are the supposed arbiters of mental health not saying anything? I'm just going to tweet about it. Why not? Why aren't you saying anything about the riots, mental health, aggression, crisis, and how to help us de-escalate? I'm going to say it right now. Three biggest organizations funded by the government, funded by nonprofits, funded by the taxpayers. They're supposedly the arbiters of mental health saying shit about protests, riots, pain, grief, loss, anger, aggression, crisis management, de-escalation, nothing. What the hell's going on here? What's the deal, folks? What kind of world do we live in where people just, nah, I'm out. I'm only here when I can do fancy research. I'm not here when I can make a practical impact on how you function right now. What the hell? You know? And I'm not saying that all therapists or mental health providers are not doing something to be supportive, but like, God, you would think that at the top down level, they would do something useful. They're not doing shit. It's kind of disappointing. G-Man says, this is just one massive red pill and it's just too much at once. And probably this is the shit that's going to get Donald Trump reelected. You're welcome. You've earned it, right? If you hate Donald Trump, he's going to come in, he's going to use the National Guard and all this shit, and he's going to be daddy, and he's going to get Jordan Peterson. He's going to be daddy. He's going to clean up the mess. He's going to put his foot down, and it's just, this is going to happen. And for all of you who thought you were going to, I'm predicting, I don't know, just predicting, but you earned it. You earned it. You hate the guy. You did all the things to get him reelected. You earned it. Right? It's that simple. G-Man says, the lack of funding, the number one cause of death in the United States is lack of funding. Now, do you mean that literally, like people are broke? Because that makes sense to me. Bobby says, most likely the folks running their social media are mentally ill and caught up with hysteria and not in a good place to handle the chaos. It's possible, and I hope that's not the case. John D says Trump 2020 martial law elections are going to be canceled. God, what a mess this is. And that's why I want to get dirty. I want us to get in. Like, I'm willing to volunteer every weekend. And if you want me to go after work, I can go after work too. And I'll just sit downtown, wherever, and I'll run crisis de-escalation groups. What is needed? Like, who else wants to do this with me? Like, who the fuck is interested in actually helping alleviate suffering and building community? Because I think that's what this takes. It requires us doing something that's really fucking uncomfortable, which is getting out of our comfortable space, going and being with people who are pissed and hurt and confused and afraid. You know, I've offered online, I'm offering here. I've offered to a couple of people who run big businesses privately to make this happen. So far, just waiting. This shit needs to go. This needs to happen. Bobby says, go Trump. Yes. It's a fucking mess. That's right. This time is a fucking mess. All of this is a fucking mess. It's just frustrating. And why are we being so terrible to each other? Why are we being so horrible to each other? It's just, it doesn't need to be like this. It doesn't need to be like this. Bobby says, it's war. We have to be mindful of that. Be risk aware. Yeah, no, I mean, be protected and be safe. You know, that's the issue, is if we're not safe. What do we do? What do we do? Yeah, G-Man. G-Man says this is worse than Ferguson. Yeah. I mean, the riots are worse. You know? This is way worse, right? And the bitch of this whole thing is everyone agrees that what happened was fucked up. Like, almost everyone unanimously, like 98% of the country. It's not like even Ferguson, where it's like there was a pretty strong contingent of people who was like, maybe he really did have a gun, or maybe something really fishy did happen. That's not the case here. The case is everyone saw the video, it seemed like, and everyone's like, this is fucked up. This should never happen. Arrest that guy, try him for murder. That is exactly what, I mean, the vast majority of people online and all the stuff, like, that seems to be the trend. So it's different than Ferguson, where everyone's on board, like univocal, right? Yeah, nothing. People have had too much. It's just they're at their breaking point, right? Whether it's just because of the quarantine or what, you know. Quarantine certainly didn't help, that's for sure. As Bobby said earlier, just bottling shit up clearly doesn't work. By the way, this is a lesson for all of us, which is bottling shit up never works. Keeping people trapped inside never works. John says, courts didn't have time to act before the media began pushing the racial BS. I don't even know about that. I mean, I don't even know specifically when this incident happened and the video happened, but yeah. This is a long time coming. This is a long time coming of the media pitting us against each other based upon race or age or gender or sexual orientation. This is a long time coming with all the pundits, you know, the intellectual pundits going out there and doing the tribalistic bullshit. This is just a conglomeration of really stupid shit all exploding at once, right? Between being locked up inside for COVID and identity politics and the media and politicians and all this bullshit just coming to a head all at once. I saw a couple of tweets earlier today that were like, God, man, those astronauts picked the best time to leave Earth. And I was just thinking, fuck, wow, that sounds great. How cool for them to just get off this planet when all this bullshit's happening. Maybe Elon Musk like left and got in the capsule with them and just fuck it, I'm out, you know? Like, man, what a time we live in. What a weird, angry, fearful moment. It went from like COVID-19, pandemic, have to be locked inside, how much this sucks, businesses are dying, all this to all of a sudden we have riots in the streets. Just May has been worse and worse and worse. And I hope it gets better because people can't take much more. And we need to get boots on the ground, mental health, boots on the ground right now. That, I think, is the solution. And I have already publicly volunteered to be involved. I don't have the wealth or whatever to fly all over the place and do shit, but like here in LA, I'm happy to volunteer. We can run crisis de-escalation groups. We can do things to help people de-escalate and calm. Churches can do this. Tomorrow's Sunday. Churches need to have doors open, trying to help people de-escalate. There needs to be a relief, or this shit is going to continue and get worse and worse and worse. G-Man says, I think it's the sense of oppression against minorities. I mean, yes. John says, Obama's army of oppressed minorities is being called into action. Notice how they dropped white females from their ranks. I don't even know. G-Man, I don't know if that's true. Michael K says, we have contradictions. We have excited energy to hurry and fix problems without talking. Yes. We shun each other. Yes. We cast out each other. Yes. We hate each other at the end of the day. Yes. There's a primitive part of ourselves that engages in hateful behavior and shit like identity politics and all this shit just makes it all work. And all this naming, blaming, shaming, tribalism, all the shit that's happening right now, I can find at least 2 or 3 tweets right now, no problem, that's doing exactly that. And that shit has to stop. There's a difference between that and saying you're responsible for your behavior. That's fine, but naming, blaming, and shaming, all that shit, it's got to stop right now. It's not working. Psychology Prime says, de-escalation is the thing. Exactly, sir. Yes, sir is not necessary. I'm not old enough and I'm not smart enough or respectful enough. Psychology Prime, I think you're right. This, at its center, is a result in part of our primitive human nature. And we haven't addressed it. We don't do shit with it. We have, Bobby says it's weaponized shame. Yes, exactly. This is weaponized shame based upon racial identity, based upon victim mentality, which is separate from racial identity. There's so much shit happening and exploding all at once right now between the pandemic, between fear about work and money and finances and safety, racism, history of oppression, all these things exploding at once. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit because it is the shit that we have had an opportunity to deal with and address, and people have pushed it to the wayside for years. For years, people have been calling for a chance to talk, a chance to deal with their pain. No one's taken them seriously. I've been saying for years, on YouTube at least, we need to deal with our primitive side, our pain, our shame, our fear, our hurt, all this. No one's doing it. No one's doing it. Psychology Prime says, and we see identity politics and toxic tribalism on both left. Yeah, of course. Toxic tribalism is on both sides, and it's fucking stupid, right? Picking a side right now is the last thing you should be doing. The only team you should be on is Team Human, in my opinion. And maybe that's too optimistic or naive or whatever, but you know what? Fuck it, right? Like you can crucify me for that opinion. I'm probably going to get crucified for a number of things I've said while I'm frustrated here. But the point of the matter is, we need to be human. We need to deal with each other. We need to have compassion and love for each other. And we're not doing that. We are not doing that. I am in the same group of people with my frustration, my fears, and my biases. And it keeps me from being connected to. It keeps me separate from. And weaponized empathy. It's a vicious cycle. Yeah, all these comments are definitely right on. How do we break the negative feedback loop? As Bobby asks. And I say it's by getting together and being human and real with each other and dealing with the pain and the shame, the hurt, the fear. If we don't deal with it, it's not going to go better. It's going to get worse. I don't know if you can hear that, but I just heard a siren going off. It's 11:11 right now. I wonder what's happening. right? G-Man says, we kicked the grenade down the line and it finally exploded. That's a brilliant visual. We kicked the grenade down the line and it finally exploded. Didn't it? Certainly did, didn't it? Michael K. said, compassion and love can be exploited, and knowing how to avoid that without closing up shop completely is complicated. You're right, Michael. It's very, very difficult. And that's why I think that mental health professionals like myself and many, I'm not here to rescue anything. I'm just here to offer support. But I think the people who know how to do this professionally should be at the head of the table talking about how to heal. Not cops, not political activists. Doesn't matter what your fucking skin color is. You need to deal with the people who know how to actually hear people. And everyone needs to be at the table. But if we don't let the mental health people do their job, why do they exist? That's my opinion. It's not narcissism. I don't think I can fix shit. I think I can listen. And I think I can be, professionally, I can be a human with people. That's what I think. Psychology Prime says, I would like to ask about some ideas you have for strategies we can use to address our human nature in order to help us come together and prevent these sorts of things. So the first thing that needs to happen, in my opinion, is right now, tomorrow, right? Get some sleep, take care of yourself, but tomorrow, get up, start working on a way to come together and heal your community. Have chances for people to talk. Set up very solid, safe rules, boundaries around nonviolence, boundaries around listening, boundaries around not interrupting, and being able to clearly identify and manage pain. That's the first thing that needs to happen. But we also need separate groups for, crisis de-escalation, which should totally be facilitated by a mental health professional. Those are the two things that need to happen. And even if you have just the emotional free space to handle one person who's in pain, handle that one person, be there for them. That's what I think really needs to happen. John says, I disagree. As long as I'm not hurting anyone, I have no obligation to love them and help them. It's your choice, John. It's totally your choice. I'll respect whatever decision you want to make. I'm just saying, my perspective is we definitely need to help people. I believe we should help people. If we have the time, the energy, and the effort, the available resources to just be another decent human being to someone else, even that helps. Bobby says, activists kind of suck. G-Man says, I agree. Absolutely. Bobby says, a lot of the mental health people are in crisis right now, unfortunately. Yeah, it's probably true. It's probably true. I hope that's not true, but it is probably true. John D says, in 20 years, do you foresee a sharp rise in psychotic behavior and schizophrenia due to the legalization of weed? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. G-Man G says, when someone yells and isn't heard, it escalates into screams. If that isn't heard, well, it turns into violence, right? So we want to de-escalate that way, way beforehand. Michael K said, there's a bromide. You can love someone without liking them. Right. There's so many people that we probably don't like, but we could love them. We could care and we could have compassion for them, but we don't, right? And if you want a book on this, you could read like Paul Bloom's Against Empathy. Rational compassion is hard to do because our primitive empathy, like emotionally driven, living in someone else's shoes experience, hijacks us. So if we get through all that and just acknowledge, okay, I'm going to have a strong reaction. I need to deal with that strong reaction so that I can actually be present for people. That's a gift, right? So the simplest thing we can do, back to Psychology Prime's question, is to be human with each other, acknowledge our hurt, our confusion, our pain. And if we have the free space to be there for someone, do what you can to be there for someone. And if you have the resources and free space to be there for multiple people, maybe get a support group going. Fund a mental health person to come do some kind of support group, whatever it is. Get the resources you need to do crisis management. Tons of people are trained to do crisis management, state, State-funded facilities are trained to do crisis management. Psychiatrists, all these professionals are trained to do crisis management, or at least they should have been. So you should have access to people who can do this, hopefully. Hopefully. So something needs to change. Bobby says, that's why I recognize the COVID 1984 agenda for what it is. It is meant to divide and conquer. People have been lulled into a state of false security, and the heist in our humanity happened with COVID-19. Interesting. I guess. I don't know. I mean, this is just a fucked up situation all around. Yeah, it's bad timing, but it's also like there's just years and years of pain, hundreds of years of pain. There's victims, there's victim narratives, there's news media putting gasoline on a fire, and there's just all sorts of shit. It's just out of control, right? It's just out of control. We need to, Bobby says, there's clearly something going on, but it can't have good results in an awakening. We need to wake up right now. If we don't wake up right now, this painful process is going to continue and worsen. And if we don't deal with our primitive nature right now, it is going to get worse and worse and worse. You thought the 2016 election was bad? 2020 is going to be worse if we don't deal with our pain and our fear and our primitive side right now. I guarantee you that. We're not going to get better like that. That's not how this works. And Bobby says, I think it will worsen at first, unfortunately. Maybe so. I hope not. I hope that what's happening the last few days is a giant wake-up call to all of us to be more compassionate, to be more understanding, to divide less, to think and be involved with each other more. John says, sometimes love hurts. You have to whip your child sometimes. I don't know that this is us whipping each other, though. I think the violent riots and looting and hurting each other is not admonishing or parenting in like the King Solomon sense. This is the I'm having my primitive overreaction experience. G-Man G says, the greatest transfer of wealth is happening right now, and people will get left behind, widening the class gap. Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm not an economist, so I don't know, but I can see it happening. Michael K., divide and conquer will never end. You cannot live as if the strategy will ever truly subside. Right. I'm just saying that we have to actually understand and get to know and manage our primitive side. The issue is we're not addressing it. We numb it. We get wasted. We watch crappy TV. We check out all the time. We don't actually address who we are. We shove our feelings into a corner. That's not dealing with who we are, our pain, our confusion, our hurt, our fear. We don't do that. We need to do that. That's what needs to happen right now. That needs to be the wake-up call. We need to get our shit together and deal with our primitive stuff. And if we have the wherewithal, we need to do more to help other people. You know, that's what I firmly believe this. And I think if we deal with our shit better and then do our best to help other people with whatever resources we have emotionally, etc., then we won't have to divide and conquer as much, or we'll be able to like compartmentalize it and put it in places that it's safe and productive, like sports, maybe business, things like that. Psychology Prime says, well said. Without awakening, we continue the same destructive cycle. And we're asleep. We're asleep. We're asleep because we're happy to medicate ourselves with licit and illicit drugs. We're happy to medicate ourselves with terrible food or with terrible lifestyles or TV binging and all that shit. That's terrible for us. We've created a terrible culture for ourselves. You know? And we need to break the cycle by waking up today to deal with our pain, to deal with our hurt, to deal with our fear, to deal with the core primitive parts of ourself. The part of you that has the capacity to hate someone will, if you don't deal with it. And I hate to be like all Jordan Peterson because he's been ripped to shreds and stuff, but he's right in the metaphorical sense, like notwithstanding a technical discussion of what the shadow is and blah, 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 which I'm not going to do. It's 11 fucking 30 at night. But like, we don't make friends with our shadow. We just let it sit there. And we put Cheetos and pot and alcohol and TV shows and all that stuff into it. And that's it. No self-understanding, no self-compassion, and then no compassion for other people. Just fuck you. You're different. You believe in a different political party or a different ideology than me or a different God, so fuck you. And that's clearly gotten us nowhere. It's not working. It's got to change. We've got to get back to being a community and being involved with each other and caring about each other. That's what's going to help with this. We're not doing it. No one's proposing it. Who's proposed it in social media? Who else other than me has proposed it? You point me to them and I'll follow them and I'll support them and I'll shout them out. You know? Who? Who else is? You know? And if I'm wrong, tell me why I'm wrong. I'll change my mind. The moment someone comes up with a strategy that might work better, I will change my mind and I'll support it. So long as it's reasonable and it has lower risk, high reward, I'm down. You know? Bobby says John smokes too much weed and whips something. Giving each other shit in the chat while I'm all worked up over here. Bobby says I gotta go calm down, get some Z's. Go cool, yeah. Sleep well. And keep doing what you're doing. And if you're out there and you are trying to be a decent person, you're trying to be in touch with who you are and your primitive side, and you're trying to help other people, thank you. Please keep doing it. If you have the emotional resources, the financial resources to help people right now, please help them. You know, this is the time for us to be involved with each other. We really, really badly need to be involved with each other. Soraya says, do you think not embracing the shadow results in projection? Sure, of course. Yeah, I mean, anything that we can't tolerate, we put outside. We either cordon it off and shove it away, or we put it outside in the real world and other people. Because it's just not tolerable any other way. You bet. Psychology Prime says, you mentioned Jung. I think of Jung's thoughts on the psyche. Had she given up, she would not have ascended to godhood. Would have remained mortal and thus would have died. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Again, Jung's fascinating and all that, but I mean, in terms of practical, no. But fascinating from a metaphorical perspective. When you get someone who's nice and calm and like neurotic, you can do all sorts of interesting Jungian stuff with them, Jungian stuff. But yeah. So, and I'm not normally this heated, so sorry about that, but I'm just frustrated that all of this hurt, this pain, this anger, all this stuff, it's happening. Yeah. And that no one's really taking it seriously from the, how do we deal with the pain? Jung suits us artsy types, that's for sure. Necessity is the mother of invention, as John says. It is. Maybe this will cause us to be inventive. Maybe this will cause us to be inventive about how we collaborate with each other and work with each other. That's what needs to happen, in my opinion. You know? If we don't build community right now, if we run from each other, if we divide, if we say, screw you, it's not going to work. It's not going to work at all. You know? And this is me as a separate individual, not relating to any group or people I affiliate with. This is just me. This shit is not working at all. Michael K. says, one problem is that sometimes the people speaking messages that are possibly the correct ones are always speaking those messages. That can be an uncanny valley, if you know the term. I'm a little confused. One problem is that sometimes the people speaking messages that are possibly the correct ones are always speaking those messages. That can be an uncanny valley, if you know the term. I know the term. it usually refers to robots and AI, but like, what's the implication there, Michael? The phoenix rises from the ashes, as John says. Yeah, it's true. And maybe that's going to be the case here. Bobby says, I love when you get fired up like Bill Burr. It's hard to peel myself away. You should go to bed. You should get some sleep. You all should be getting sleep. Why you're here with me, I don't even know. But like, thank you for coming and chatting and like talking things out with me. You know, being here for me, just like I'm trying to be here for everyone else. But I think, you know, the issue is definitely just, it's so frustrating. And this is a time when we need to work with each other. How do we not actually deal with each other? Michael says, an uncanny valley is when something appears to be human. It is too perfect to be accepted by the brain, and therefore causes a negative. Oh, yeah. So the message is actually too good to be true, right? I think it's different. I think the issue is more like, in my opinion, Michael, I think it's just too hard. I think it's just way too freaking scary, right? Way, way, way too scary to actually do the hard thing, which is to be human and go sit down with someone you don't know, who could hurt you, who might hate you, and just be receptive to whatever they're going through. To actually be in a community. For many people, they haven't actually lived in a community. They've lived in these modern societies. They've seen their society change. And Bobby says, I'm always here for you. Yeah, of course I know that. Yeah. Tina sends a heart. Thank you, Tina. Appreciate that. John says, you should look more into long-term effects of marijuana. When we had a mental health system in America, it was widely documented in their insane systems. I mean, a lot of people who have schizophrenia or who are diagnosed with other mental illnesses do use cannabis, partially for self-medication. Whether or not it turns into long-term psychosis is up for debate at this point. So it's just not clear, the trajectory. The earlier you start using, the more risk you are. You know, the higher the THC content, the more at risk you are. So those are things we know. Soraya says, we're doing a chat and talk protest here in New Zealand. Walking together and writing with chalk. Oh, it's a chalk and talk. I'm sorry. So you're doing a chalk and talk protest in New Zealand. You're walking together and writing with chalk around the city. I think it will help protesters, but leaders still won't listen. Well, good for you for doing the chalk and talk. I wish that was happening everywhere, right? Because it's demonstrative, it's nonviolent, it's collaborative. People are talking. That's all great. That needs to happen. You know? Yes, I love you too, Bobby. Have a good night. Be good. Yeah, I love the chalk and talk idea. I'm gonna tweet about it right now. Maybe we can do that. Maybe we can do more of the tweet about it, the talking and new idea from the YouTube live chat. Soraya says, chalk and talk, where you go around the neighborhood, right? And what do you write? What do you write with the chalk, though? That's what's confusing. What are these messages like about community, about healing? Like, what is the point of those messages? Because I think that's a great idea. I just want to make sure I'm communicating it effectively. Because I like that idea. Protest slogans. Okay. And I'm going to add some things too. Okay. Just share it on Twitter. Hopefully the idea gets out there and maybe some people will use it, you know? Maybe it'll be helpful. Who knows? You know? Maybe it won't. We are definitely the most dangerous species on Earth. If one thing is clear, we certainly are. Still some chat going on about weed. It's definitely much stronger than it ever was, for sure. Good luck with that. It's very, very complicated. Psychology problem. I think in-group empathy while excluding out-group empathy is a part of the problem. Yes, that's part of our primitive nature, is empathy for me, not for you. You're black, I'm white, therefore scary, bad, confusing, violent protester, civilized psychologist. That's how the brain works. It's stupid. It's really freaking stupid. And it should never be that way. But it's that way because it, for some reason, was advantageous, I guess. Like that's the evolutionary hypothesis that tribalism was needed to help your genes survive, blah, blah, blah. I don't have proof of that. It just seems to be true. It seems to be what the evo-psych people say. It seems to be fundamentally kind of in our ethos, in our collective unconscious, whatever you want to say. It's in our spirit, unfortunately. It's in how we're built. And everything that we can do right now to help change that in an effective and useful way would be great. Like maybe having these community events, getting people together, not being assholes to each other, dealing with bias, dealing with prejudice, owning your shit, dealing with your primitive side, helping people understand and have space for their primitive side. That would be great. That would be great. That's what I'm hoping for, Psychology Prime. We deal with our shit, we help people deal with theirs, and maybe we build community as opposed to building more division, right? Maybe. I don't know. What would I know? I'm just a person, you know? I also think, back to the comments here about cannabis and excessive cannabis use, I think one of the problems is we've been numbing ourselves for a while, for a long time. For a long time in this country and other countries, but for a long time. It's not just cannabis. Michael K says, and a piano man. John D, this is hilarious for me because I never thought I'd be called this. John D says, the push for community is classic neo-Marxist rhetoric. John, if you were in the area, I'd be perfectly happy to grab a coffee or go on a walk with you and explain to you all the ways in which that's not true for me or what Marx originally wrote. Now, to be fair, yes, people talk about communism and this idealized notion of like everyone's going to love each other and get along and all that bullshit, which isn't true. Will never happen. But what we can do is build a realistic sense of community. In fact, I took 3 stabs at this concept when I created my adaptive group identity series. It's on YouTube. You can check it out, John. My adaptive group identity series is very straightforward. We have to understand how primitive we are. Once we figure out like the ways in which our identity, different facets of it, get hijacked by different social forces and internal forces, we can contextualize it, integrate it so that it's not this all or nothing thing. I'm black, you're white. It should never be that simple. It should never be that thing trumps that thing. One facet of your identity should never trump any other facet of it. If we really want to evolve, it needs to be much more complex and thoughtful, but we don't operate that way. We operate very, very simplistically. This is that. Because of this, you're that. All that shit. all that tribalistic bullshit. It's never going to go away. So in my book, up there in white and yellow and blue, I proposed adaptive group identity on YouTube, 4 videos talking about the concept, applying it to race, politics, and religion. Go check it out, John. Take a look. You'll see how exactly not a communist or neo-Marxist I am. As someone who makes money and tries to live in a capitalist society and is not like all anti-capitalism on Twitter or whatever, I see the problems of capitalism, but I'm not sitting here calling for like sickle and a hammer, you know. Psychology Prime. So well said, Patrick. We build community rather than building division. We can build community while maintaining appropriate boundaries. My job as a clinician is to help people feel close to me and feel close to them, vice versa, but also maintaining boundaries. We need to learn that skill as a community, and we haven't. Why? I don't know. But we need to. We really need to. Michael K. says community may be used as rhetoric. It is not exclusively rhetoric. Maybe. And in my case, I mean it literally. I mean, there's got to be a way to both be separate and connected, to live in the dialectical tension of I'm separate from you, you're separate from me, but we want to be together to cooperate and not destroy each other, essentially. So there's got to be some middle ground, and it can't just be we're so separate we can never meet. That can't work. And it also can't be the case that we're so close that we're perfectly the same, which is also not the case, right? Israel says, hey, Dr. Lockwood, good to see you again. You as well. You as well. I mean, I'm kind of at the end of my rope here in terms of what I can say and my energy and my thoughtfulness. So, you know, if you all have some last comments or ideas for how to like help people heal, I'm open. I want this to work. I want things to get better. So what do you all think? Other than the stuff I've been rambling about for the last hour, what do you think would work? Right? Like, other than getting together and trying to just build some solidarity, what else is going to work? Like, what do you think? Do we put on events? Do we create new laws? What do we do? Right? Because as a clinician, my first thought's always going to be, how do I sit down with people and help them to like get chill, de-escalate? That's kind of the limit of my thinking in this regard. You know? So what else do you think we can do that's proactive, that de-escalates and heals? What do you think we can do? Do we need to just fall apart more? Is that the solution? Do we just need to fall apart more until people have had enough? I don't like that idea. That scares me a lot. I hope that's not the answer. I think we can do things right now that are proactive, that help. What do you think? I mean, I'm open to anything at this point. So it's a tough time, folks. Lots of riots, lots of violence, lots of pain, lots of anger. If you think I can help, let me know. If you want to talk with me privately, you know, you can DM me on Twitter at PsychPLockwood, and I will do whatever I can to be supportive. If you want to organize an event in your community and you need some guidance about de-escalation or finding the right, you know, people to help manage the event, I'll do what I can to help. Something's got to change. We got to get dirty. We got to deal with our shit, and we're not dealing with it. We're not dealing with the primitive sides of us. You know? Psychology Prime says, I think in general terms, what you said, building the community while maintaining healthy boundaries is very important. Thank you for this chat. Of course. Soraya makes a good point. People need to see opportunity in their future and that their kids have opportunity for a good life. So much is economic. Okay, cool. That's great. So we need to be able to show people a future that's full of opportunities so that they have something to like grasp onto so they're not chaotic and despondent right now. That makes sense to me. So what do we show them? Right? Do we show them an economy that's going to come back? Do we give them false hope? Like, what do we do? Because I'm not an economist. I don't know anything outside of like clinical psych and the brain and shit. So like my wheelhouse is very limited to that kind of negotiating, right? What do we do? Do we like enlist a game theorist? Like, what do we do? I don't know, but I agree with you that we should definitely be trying to show people that the future can be better and will be better, provided we do some work. You know, I'm with that. Michael K says, as we separate into our enclaves, we wind up using the same words to speak different languages. True. How much do you think this affects or exacerbates our current issues? I think we talk past each other all day. All day. You know, one of the people that I regularly speak with on Twitter is someone who's involved in Black Lives Matter. And, you know, when we first started talking, we actually were talking past each other, even though we were trying to say the same thing. But because we didn't have good optics on each other and we didn't know each other, we were actually kind of in conflict. And I didn't even know that what I was saying was conflictual, right? So that happens all the time. And I think we need to start speaking the same language. But here's the issue, Michael. I don't think we can speak the same language until we all agree on the terms or what language to use. And there's a lot of division about how we address things like that. That's why I was hoping maybe people could get some groups going so we could start listening to each other and hearing things and trying to understand each other so that we know what language to use. You know, there's nothing I would love more if in a fantasy land, you know, of probably narcissistic something related to me or whatever, but like in a fantasy land, what would happen tomorrow is in all these communities where violence and riots and looting is happening, all the churches would open up. In all the churches, you have confident leaders, you have confident congregation who are willing to be there for their community. And they also have clinicians, community members, people who are willing to be involved, be mentors, be leaders, be role models, role model positive conversation, hearing each other, managing pain, having boundaries, all that. I would love to see that happen tomorrow. If I had a magic wand, that's exactly what would fucking happen. So that we can de-escalate. We need a radiator. This is an engine without a radiator. And I think mental health professionals can help be the radiator. Humies says, greetings, Humies. Hello, Humies. Israel says, how can we bridge communal divides when cultural differences keep dividing us? Nuance is completely lost. Well, I think nuance is lost. I agree with you. And that's what I've been trying to push for on Twitter and in my YouTube videos too. But I don't know that it's cultural differences so much as our lack of willingness to see through cultural differences or fear or primitive parts of ourselves, tribalistic parts of ourselves that keep us kind of cognitively stuck in rigid patterns of how we understand each other. So we have to kind of work through these cognitive patterns and make more solid choices about how to deal with all these things, you know, which is why I wrote my book, The Fear Problem. Matt says, Matt Stoller, Goliath, economic analysis is helpful to understand the current circumstance and actions that could be taken to change things instead of keep repeating mistakes of 2008. You mean in reinvesting in greedy bankers and stuff like that? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're just in such a fucked up space. All right, folks. I think I'm kind of spent here. I really appreciate you chatting with me and proposing ideas. I think so far there's kind of like two broad categories of ideas that people have really been talking about here. So I've mostly been pushing this idea of how do we get people together in a room and how do we do two things? One, We need crisis management services, boots on the ground every day that these riots are going on. There needs to be a trained mental health professional or a group of them providing crisis management and de-escalation services. The other half of it is there need to be community-led churches, nonprofits, government organizations, sessions where people can sit down, talk about their pain, their fear, their hurt, their confusion, lack of promise for the future, all that stuff that we've been talking about here. And then what was brought up here in the chat, which I think is great, is we need to show people a better future and what this can look like. And I think, some things that are coming in the future could be good evidence of like things getting better. But right now it looks very scary, looks not very promising, So do your best to be safe. Take care of yourself. If you have the mental free space to be supportive of someone who's in pain right now or lost or angry, please do. If you know anyone who's struggling and they don't know where to turn, send them my way. Send them my way on Twitter. I'll talk to them for free. I'm not here looking to get rich or be famous. I'm here looking to help. It's that simple. So let me know what you need. You know how to find me. And if there's anything I can do, if you have other ideas about how to de-escalate and who to share it with, let me know. I'll do that. Okay? Okay. Psychology Prime says, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate you. No problem. It's the least I can do. We got to deal with our primitive shit first and then help other people. And we have to do both. If we don't do both, this crap's going to keep happening. So be safe, be well, take care of yourselves, take care of other people if you can. Thank you so much for showing up. And I'll hopefully chat with you in the near future. Okay? So have a good night.